for me, from when I wake up, from when I watch the news to social media, I'm just tired. And this sounds weird saying this, because I said this to you personally, like at times, I'm tired. I feel like being Black, if that makes sense. Where it's to a point of it's some sort of social justice issue, how we're portrayed, how we're spoken, just from movies to everything. I just feel like Black trauma has been on the menu like really, 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 really strong recently. And it's just very overwhelming. So I just felt like more than anything, this is a conversation. I just wanted like a little bit of healing and just reel it back. So
A little bit of therapy.
yeah, a little bit of therapy. And this is somebody who like helps me. I randomly text, I'm sad. The fuck is going on? And she's like, Karen, talk to me. I don't even want to get this wrong because I just want to be like, this is the person when I'm like in the deep end, she's like, come here, girl. Just kind of pulls me back and is like, okay, helps me formulate the words of whatever I'm feeling. So, Allison, do you want to grace them and give them? I just call it like a healer or just like get your mind right. That's what I have you saved in my phone as. Helps me get my mind right. But I know it's like the pro quo title.
Yeah, coach. I just call myself a coach, relationship coach, life coach.
Relationship
all
coach.
that
Oh
shit.
my
Oh,
God.
you should never told me that first.
I know. That should not have been the first thing out of my mouth. But yeah, I have my PhD in clinical psychology, and I absolutely obsess over working with people, in particular Black women, because I feel like what you were saying earlier, we are in this space where it's like people have been calling it like Black trauma porn.
That's what it feels like. I can't escape it.
It's everywhere.
The news, social media, to it's just a video. It's a movie. Like it's to a point. I just want to be entertained and laugh. And I'm not saying I don't want to act like it doesn't exist, but growing up, like when a movie came out, it felt good. Like you got a Will Smith movie, and it was just like, okay, yay, July 4th, it's gonna be fun. We had like, Blank Man and all this
Men in
other,
Black.
Men in Black, and it was like
Wild Wild
good. And then now,
West.
now it's just like, oh, we about to get shot? Who's about to kill us?
But-
Who's about to get thing?
To the defense of them portraying like all the killings and stuff, I just feel like, me personally, I feel like it's finally being highlighted because it didn't just start happening, right? So at least we are being conscious about it. Like even like the riots over George Floyd, right? It wasn't until like corporate America businesses was affected to when motherfuckers was like, okay, we got to do something about it. Like we got to start hiring more Black people. We have to start divert like
A lot of them said that they were making a pledge to hiring.
but
And
the conversation started.
Okay, it's cool to start the conversation, but I don't even know where the conversation went because a lot of these companies.
But without it being brought to light, the conversations would have never been had.
I get it. I'm not clapping for performative anything no more, and I'm tired of it. And
You gotta
I
start somewhere.
Listen, I understand that. That's fine, but I'm not clapping for performative bullshit where a lot of these companies who did Blackout Tuesday, who said, I'm going to pledge. Pledge means going to wait. Pledge means I'm going to give, and I don't actually give it.
But Target actually stood behind their word.
Okay, there's certain companies, yes,
But that would have never happened if it was never a platform of.
But at the same time, too, it still bothers me that we had to have this situation. This man had to lose his life. All of this spotlight had to come and everything else. At this point.
But think about 10 years ago.
Cool.
We've been losing our lives to the police.
Cool. George Floyd is the thing now. When I was a kid, I had Rodney King. So it's just
but that's like 30 years.
No. But what I'm saying is,
years.
This is the thing.
40 maybe.
Listen, it's continuously happening to a point. This is why I wanted to have this conversation. I'm tired. Where I just feel like everything is so performative. Where it's like, okay, let's put up the post. Let's say we're going to do this, and no actual change. And you're seeing now to a point.
But before it
since,
was no post, no change,
the way
no
I feel-
talk about. It was just like swept up under the rug.
It's
I'm in
like-
the middle.
and we went to work.
I'm between the two of y'all where one of the reasons like we still do this, one of the reasons we're still showing these videos and all of these clips is because like a lot of white people in the South, a lot of white people back in like the 60s and the 50s didn't think racism was a problem. They didn't think segregation was an issue. They're like separate but equal, everyone's good. But then when the news started showing little kids getting hit by hoses and people getting bit by dogs, then people were like, fuck, like something's actually happening. But I think what's happening now is if you don't know this is happening, on a psychological level, is watching black folk be brutalized over and over again, bleed out. Like watching that Philando Castile video broke my heart. Like trauma on trauma. Could only imagine his little baby girl sitting in that back seat, his girl sitting in the car. And it's so hurtful that I do also have to wonder, like, because I understand the people on one hand who are like, but people have to see our reality. Our reality isn't pretty. It isn't sanitized. But then on the other hand, there's this concept called the availability heuristic. So the more you hear something, like if you hear about like a plane crash, right? Like plane crashes are super rare, right? They almost never happen. But when one happens, it's on the news every single day, over and over and over again. And so you begin to believe that planes are maybe a little bit more dangerous than they really are because you're hearing it so much. And so what I think is happening now is seeing all these black folk dying isn't making people feel bad. It's not making people say like, we got to change. It's making people numb. It's making people say like, oh, like when you hear like something will happen in a neighborhood and they'll be like, oh, this doesn't happen in this neighborhood. Because the assumption is it does happen in some other neighborhoods and that's okay. And so I think that there's like a double-edged sword here and like we are educating people. But one, if you didn't already know, where the fuck you been, right? And then now we're at a point where I think people are just getting kind of like, oh, well, this is what happens. And I don't,
I think my biggest issue with this is I get it. So it's a twofold, right? One, we were talking about just with movies and cinema and stuff. Honestly, I'm tired. It's just now, you know, like they did a release recently that it was like something with Will Smith and how they said it just like irked me. Because this is somebody who I've always watched with entertainment and certain things, who brought laughs. And they were like, he's bringing like a slave drama. It's just the way it was worded. I was like, oh, that deep Negro sigh. Yeah. Even just with the films that are out now, it's just, you know, with them. Everyone is pissed at Lena Waithe. She didn't create that.
Yeah, she just executive produced it.
One episode.
Oh.
But there's other people.
I didn't even know that. Them on
she did like,
Amazon.
I think it was like one episode.
I thought it was a movie.
No. It's
like a series. Yeah.
But even with I don't know if you saw how Amazon put out the commercial for it, and it was like if you're too tender-headed, this is not for you. And the little girl's hair was on fire, and I'm like, I don't want to see this. It's things like that that annoy me and make it so hard for me at times to exist in a place where I hear what you're saying, where it gets so annoying where someone has to constantly pass and they're like, okay, we have to see this. This is our America. This is our reality. When our reality and the story continuously is the same. Now, like a lot of things need to be redone to a point of like, I have no faith in it ever since Sandy Hook.
We let those babies die and we didn't do anything.
We let those children die and a majority of them were not black. They were not black.
Babies.
They were not black. So I'm like, the fact that America would let these children die, no gun reform, no nothing. Everybody was just copacetic and cool. And we've continuously had it happen. And it's worse now with the climate with COVID. Everybody's stuck in the house. Yeah. And now it's just like, it feels like it's not even every week. It's every day.
Every day. There was two in one day yesterday, right?
I can't even keep up.
And then
I can't even keep up.
And then with Sandy Hook, what's even worse is when something really distasteful happens, right? Like the idea of kids getting gunned down, right? Horrible, feels bad.
But
nobody likes that.
But you see what Texas just passed? I think they just made a bill where you don't even have to have a license or a permit to carry. You can just literally fucking carry a gun.
Well, because what happens is when you see something that's so horrible, for a lot of people, they can't believe that it would actually happen. And so we have now these people who are Sandy Hook deniers, or literally saying like
It didn't
it's
happen.
not true, it's just actors, it's fake. Because for a lot of people, it's like it's called cognitive dissonance, right? It's existence, it's the ability to hold two very different ideas in your head at the same time, right? To say like, I believe that, I don't, but like someone might say like, I believe, we have the right to bear arms, but we need to have limits. It's hard for people to say two things that seem very different for them. And so instead of acknowledging the fact that like maybe two things can be true, they just say, fuck it. Nope, those kids didn't even exist. It's all a lie. Like, it's a conspiracy, because they have to maintain this idea of like, I'm a good person and I believe in guns, so bad people can't have guns. That doesn't make sense, because I'm a good person. I know that. And
what
so they get in this
fucking reality
spiral.
do they live in? Like, at this point, it's just like and I'm trying to be understanding, but I just feel like that side is not fully understanding to a point. It's just stupid, where I'm just naturally, I wake up, and before, like, now before I used to just like hop on my phone, check with people thing. I need like 2 hours to a point, like, even like how we film this and everything else, I can't do super early in the morning because I need 2 hours to myself, sitting in silence, meditate, set my day, how I'm gonna feel, everything else. Because I know as soon as I pick up that device or turn on the TV, something's going to upset me. Someone, the way Black men are portrayed, how they're gunned down, how gun reform is the biggest thing right now, where it's like kids can't go into the drive-thru at McDonald's without getting shot. Kids can't go to the mall without getting shot. Where it's so much, where a 12-year-old, like, I like, that video took me out for the whole day. And I didn't realize
which one,
the 12-year-old boy who was running and he put his hands up, and I didn't know what this was gonna be.
What, the one that just happened a couple weeks ago?
Yes, in Chicago.
And then they kept saying, turn off your body cams. Did you see
They said that?
You didn't see the video when they just released it last week, where everybody was instructed, hey, turn off your body cams. Make sure your body... It was like, at least it was said 3 times over the air. Turn off your body cams. Hey, I need everybody on the scene to make sure your body cams is off. And I was just like, that's fucking disgusting, because we have a right to see everything that actually really happened.
That's it. We need to know.
And I'm a type of person where it's just like, with my moral compass and everything else, it's just like, I start to take in all of these energies. I start to like, I don't know what exactly it's called, where it's just like, it starts to consume me. I start to think about that person's mother, that child, what kind of life they had, like everything. I try to figure out what type of person they are, and everything else. I start to identify with and I start to feel bad. Like, okay, what exactly can I do?
It's called empathy.
But my empathy is just to a point. At times I can't control it, where it will then, that's how I process the day and how it will treat me. It's like, hey, Karen, what's going on? Somebody could be talking to me. I'm like, hey, did you see about the kid? And this happened. They're like, okay. And I'm not trying to sour or dimmer the mood, but I'm like, this is the reality. I don't know what else or how to turn it off or anything else. It just feels like, even that's why, even I know what you said about like the films and stuff. It's just, even with that, I just feel like it's so grotesque, because it's at times it's white producers, it's white directors, and it's bad enough. Like, you're getting to profit off this trauma, and I'm tired of it, because the story, everything else is just like, just give me entertainment, give me something else.
That's what the young lady, what's her name from Blackish?
Yara?
The
Marseille.
Yeah.
She
No
said,
black trauma.
No black trauma. And I was like,
That's what
yes.
I'm saying. I'm ready for shows that are like uplifting.
Because
I want to
we
see
live
Black
good.
folk surviving. I want to see us thriving. Like, I don't just want to see us like making it. I want, like, why can't it's a movie. It's not real. Why can't we have amazing, wonderful things? I love all the superhero
But that's
movies
why I
of black
like
folks.
Bridgerton.
I love Bridgerton.
That's why I
love
Oh my God.
Bridgerton.
I haven't
You haven't
watched
watched
it yet.
Bridgerton.
No.
The queen was black. It was just like,
And she was real. But Queen
Yeah.
Charlotte was really a real black queen.
So it was
Okay, I
like-
gotta get into it.
It was
'cause
really good.
The guy
It's
that
great.
you guys love is off.
Yeah.
Like, I know they're bringing back. They just renewed season
It's really,
2
really
and
good.
3. But is it good without? Will it be good without him?
Listen, I don't know. I'm gonna watch
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
it should be
'cause
good.
To me, he was
Because
he was a big part of what.
No,
He
so this
fine.
is the thing. This is the thing. Because when it said he was
Hey.
leaving, I was gonna start the show, and I
It's
was like,
good.
ooh, because
No,
I
it's
don't want to
good.
get addicted and then be on Twitter like,
still
why
watch.
you quit?
It's not about
You will
quit.
be. You
I was
will
like,
be.
I don't want to be getting too self-involved because I
No.
know me with TV shows.
Well,
Watch it
one,
anyways.
yeah, it's really good. One, they don't have like colorism, like you know the black and white, like
Just folks exist.
There's no conversation about
yeah,
it either. Like
it
people aren't
exists.
like, it's not like a thing. People aren't like, oh, well, you're black, you can't be here.
Yeah,
and it
it's
kind of
not.
just feels nice to be able to just watch people of multiple ethnicities all wearing fancy fucking clothes.
I'm in.
All being,
I'm in.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Relationship
they're just,
drama.
Relationship drama. Just it's about the story, not about
The-
race. It's not
yeah.
about
we,
race.
we exist.
Yeah.
And we just belong. And
And-
it's great acting.
With-
That's
See,
it.
they
That's
should have
it.
sold it like that. Okay.
It's
now,
good. It's
now
a good
after
show.
this is over, y'all don't have
It
to
was
climb.
one of the highest
Yeah.
watched shows on
But
Netflix.
I didn't see. I saw that on there,
It was
but I didn't
good.
watch it.
It's good.
I didn't watch it because with the sense of like I watched. Did you watch Lupin? Mm-hmm. See, like I liked it, right?
I did too.
But my problem was I said he ain't got not one black friend on this damn show.
Not one.
You gotta watch it. I was just like, besides his son, I said he ain't got no black friends. How is he cooking? Like, where's your mother?
you eating? Where you
Yeah,
eating?
like besides his dad left. I was like, so you just don't have like nobody you high five, nobody you just text. You just the only black person. What is this like
In
London?
the whole city. The whole city.
Yeah, I'm like,
Nobody.
very interesting. Okay, but I'm not trying to make it about race.
It's like
I'm trying to be
Friends.
entertained. But yeah, I was just like, that's a little questionable. At least let me like, who's making your food? Who you texting?
Yeah, because you know he got to have like a nice little Caribbean, a little African spot he goes to eat.
Yeah.
At least somebody he sees and he knows.
Yeah, and I was
Where
just
he
like,
eats.
it's not even giving that the soundtrack, the music, nothing.
Really?
I was
Oh,
just
gotta
like,
watch this.
Okay. So what I want to ask about, since you're here and I can give me a
oh,
little
she want
free-
all the relationship advice.
No.
Let me sit back.
She's like, I'm done now. Where's
No,
this
Ming?
it's not even a. I'm gonna do the relationship advice last. Okay, my relationship life is going kind of good. but
Okay.
that's
Yeah, you ain't tweet crazy in like 2 weeks. It's been good.
Oh,
been
good
doing
weeks. That's a
good.
good.
He
2
been
weeks
doing
is a
good.
good run.
yeah.
Not for her.
For me,
It's an amazing run.
girl, 2
It's
weeks
an
is like a
amazing one.
lifetime.
Cause you
I'm
know,
going into my second lifetime at this point.
cause she drag him.
But like what I wanted to ask about was because like when I was talking to Sarah, she was talking about because I was like, you know, I'm always in like some toxic shit. I actually like secretly love it, which
At least you admit that. That's good.
so I just want to
beginning of
know, like,
everything.
I wanted to talk to you about like how you felt about like childhood trauma showing up in like adulthood and like how very real that is.
Very real. Okay, where we trying to go with this? Okay, so one thing that's interesting, even though you like bringing up relationships, so over the first like 5 to 7 years of our lives, we learn 75% of the things we're ever going to know.
Oh wow.
Right. So you are yourself. You have your character, your personality. Like you see your kids, right? They are them, and they will keep being like that until the day they die, right? When they're 110 years old, and so you absorb a lot of this information passively by watching your family, by watching the people around you, your caregivers, things like this. And so if there is a trauma, that can really shape and reshape the way that you kind of like maneuver through the world. And so a trauma is anything that like makes you feel like your life is at risk. And so for kids, a lot more things can make them feel at risk than us because they're like this big and we're bigger. So it can be even something like there's this one book that I love called The Body Keeps Score. And he gives an example in The Body Keeps Score of a girl who
later.
it's like so legit, such a
Okay.
good book. And we can talk about that later, but like this little baby girl she's in her crib and there's a horrible thunderstorm outside, lightning, thunder, all of that, and her parents don't come to get her. And she remembered this and she kind of carried this on as trauma and felt like people weren't going to be there for her. And so sometimes little things like that. And so that's why, when people say like, don't judge yourself too hard. Like if you want to be a good parent, you probably are one because like you really can't protect them from everything, right? So we get little traumas over the course of our life, right? So anything that makes us feel in danger. So it could be something like real, like we call it like trauma with a big T, like something like you've been in an accident, something actually bad happened to you, you witnessed something bad happen to somebody else, or trauma with a little t. So these are things like divorce of a parent or, divorce that we go through. So these things are very traumatic, but they're not like the life-threatening type of trauma, losing a job, having to move, being in toxic relationships. These are all traumas with a little t. And so these things can compile and can shape the way that we see the world because with trauma, you want to protect yourself, right? It's your fight, flight, freeze response. So it tells you like,
That's what my therapist.
they talk about that.
Yeah. And Amy.
Which, listen, I want to know her. I want to find her. Which one are you? Am I being personal?
Well, I'm flighty.
You're like, I'm
I
out.
just
Oh yeah. No conversation, no nothing.
and I've learned from just like, you know, I've come from, you know, a childhood of two addicted parents, and like, so I've learned to like put a lot of bad things in the back of my mind, and we never have to talk about it again. I mean, I never have to deal with it. And then like, even so, like when my grandmother passed, right? My grandmother passed in March. She lived in Detroit. Me and my grandmother was like click tight, okay? And when she passed, I was like sad, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was like a little sad, but I wasn't really sad because I had pushed it in the back. I went to her funeral, of course. I actually was the last person. I held her hand until she took her last breath. Like I said, I wouldn't leave her side. I went to her funeral, and then once I buried her, March 24th, I forgot about it. Like, in my mind, she just lived in Detroit. I lived in Atlanta, and I just hadn't talked to her. Mm-hmm. And it was so crazy that I had actually begun to believe that she was still alive, but I just hadn't seen her because she lived in Detroit. When on that Thanksgiving, I was making her dressing, and I was like, oh shit, let me call my grandmother to see, do I need to, do I pre-cook the celery and onions with the green peppers, or do I add, is it red peppers or green peppers? So I started to call my grandmother, and she didn't answer the phone, and I left her a message like, hey, I know you're not that busy, old lady, call me back. And then once I hung up the phone, I like really started to mourn her death on Thanksgiving Day, and everybody was like, well, your grandmother's been dead for 6 months. I said, yeah, but I forgot. I literally,
she died for me today.
Yeah, like I literally pushed it in the back of my mind so far that I thought she was still alive, and I was calling her for a recipe.
Yeah. And that's one of the stages of mourning, is denial. So it's actually very natural for people. You go through this stage where you're just like, this didn't happen. Like,
no way.
This didn't happen. Like, no way. No possible way. I lost my dad in June. So I definitely am fully a part of it. Oh, yeah. It's wild. It is wild. But you're along for the ride. Like, literally, some days you just cry your eyes out. Other days you're just like, I'm fine. Right? But what I'm hearing here, if it's polite,
go ahead,
is when you're little, I was saying, like, you learn passively by watching. And so we also learn how to cope. Mm-hmm. We learn, so when something bad happens to one of the adults in our life, we watch them yell, scream, cry, process, hug, support each other, like whatever they do to get themselves through this bad experience. And so if we have parents that don't cope well on their own, and they cope through avoidance, so like using substances, we call it like avoidance coping, right? So instead of dealing, it's like, you know what, I just want to feel good right now. I don't want to deal with this, so I'm just going to feel good. I'm going to do something else. I don't want to deal with this right now. It's too much for me. And so we kind of learn, like, you know what? That's how people deal with things. Like, because what else do you see? Your entire life, 100% of your life has been watching this specific thing, and that's what you know.
I agree with that. Like, with my child's father, he was like, let's just stay together for Story. And I was just like, I would prefer for Story to see her mother just healthy and happy than to see her in the same household. And let's be very honest, like, I didn't grow up in a two-family household, and that was like one of like my biggest things, like, being successful. And like, I did IVF. I paid almost $150,000 to get my daughter here. So you mean to tell me I fucking spent all this money and we not finna make it? And I was so fucking embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. Like, that was the most embarrassing thing in my whole entire fucking life, was to have to like process being a single parent, right? But then I was like, do I want to like fake it and be in this relationship just to say like Story lived in a two-family household? Or do I want Story to know her mom is happy and healthy and living and being the best? Like, I was so depressed and so like in postpartum, and it was just, and I was just like, you know what? It's more important for her to see me healthy and happy than to see both of us under the same roof. She's just gonna have to learn to realize that it's 2 Christmases that's gonna happen.
That's it. She has 2 bedrooms. She has all that.
Yeah.
Because
Like-
I also think, you know, as Black folk, as melanated people, as people of the diaspora, we are collective, right? I think that we've been feeding into this kind of like European narrative that it's like your family, like you, your partner, your kid, you leave your family at 18. That's not what we did. That's not what we do. And so I think if we raise our kids together, it kind of doesn't matter. You got to have your tribe. You got to have your village around you. So it's like, you know, if she needs a male role model, she got an uncle, she got a cousin, she got a grandpa, she got somebody.
And honestly, the best thing we could have done was broke up because me and him are really good friends. We co-parent so fucking good. We co-parent so good and we're such good friends that people be like, y'all that cool? I'm like, yeah, and it's so crazy because like, you know, story like, oh, I'm going over to my daddy's house. Or, oh, like she know, like, you know what I mean? When she come in the house, like, so like she was with her dad this weekend when she came in the house this morning. She's like, Mommy, I'm at Mommy house. And it was just like, she knows, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I love that she can see me and him be amicable, be friends, be cool. It's like the best. I mean, I'm not going to promote, you know, being a single mom, but it's working out in my favor.
That's more important. Being a, like, in the world of psychology, they call it being a good enough parent, right? So it's being a parent that, you know, you can, like, you know, manage your emotions in ways that are, you know, healthy for your kids to see, because kids can see sadness. They need to see anger. They need to see all the emotions and how you deal with them, right? So you don't have to necessarily hide things from them, but show them, like, the resolution. Like, I'm sad, grandma's dead, I'm crying. This is what happens when you're sad. You want to give me a hug? Mm-hmm. Do you want to hug mommy because she's sad? We can just sit here. You want to, like, watch, you know, we can let's look at pictures of her, you know? And so finding a way to be as healthy as you can be is how you're a good parent.
But even with that, say, like, my parents were how, like, Ming originally thought, where they put perfection over a healthy relationship.
But could you see through the smoke and mirrors? Or
It's
did
like
you think it was
now-
perfect?
At first, it was confusing. It was confusing only because, like, my dad would cheat and me and my brother would find out. He would just do things that didn't make us comfortable. And we'd tell our mom and she would confront him and then he would get mad at us for telling this business and it turned into a fight, but they'd still stay together. So it's like, do you still have this conversation with your parents, everything else? Then we had my little brother. And it's just like, it was one of those things. They didn't even have a healthy discourse or conversation with us about him. It's just one day he just came over at the age of like 6 or 7. And it was just weird. And we just had to accept it and take it in. Where now I look back at it like I've always been the flight. I don't want to talk because that's the way they raised me. But now so much I look at the past trauma and everything else, I feel like now with the self-awareness and certain thing that I've been going through, I'm like, I want to have a conversation with them about this. This is not healthy. This is not things. They will never have that conversation with me. They're not those type of parents. So where do I find the balance of just accepting it, understanding it, and moving forward where I'm never going to get those answers, but I feel like I need those answers to help me navigate the space I'm in, my feelings, to not feel like they're invalidated, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the most difficult things about kind of this, like, self-awareness process is, like, now you've kind of awoken to all the pathological patterns that were in your life. But just because you're now super, you know, good at communicating, you're making and having these awarenesses does not mean that anybody else in your life is going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Right? None of them. You kind of have this expectation, like, well, I'm going to be able, you know, I'm doing my work, I'm going to be able to go and I'm going to be able to talk to someone. And then you sit down with them and they're literally like, I'm not talking to you. Or it's like Westworld, like, what does that mean? Like, literally, like, it didn't even happen. And I think that's the hard part. And so the word you said was acceptance. And I think that there's something about the grieving process, right? And mourning the fact that, like, I wish I had that family, right? Because we all kind of have this idea in our head. We call it a schema, like like the typical family, right? We have this idea of, like, ooh, this is
White
a family.
House.
Mom, dad, picket fence, you know, the cars, the whatever.
One boy, one girl,
That's it.
a dog.
Everyone has that idea. And so there's something to be said about mourning the fact that that idea wasn't real. We call it the ideal self and the real self.
Yeah.
Right? We have this ideal, and so there is this idea of needing to like accept. We call it radical acceptance, right? This idea of it doesn't mean I like it. Because sometimes we think if we say like we accept it, like we're somehow saying like it's okay.
Yeah.
Or like it was a good thing, and it wasn't a good thing. It didn't feel good for you, right? Because then
Yeah.
what's even stranger is it can be okay for one kid in the family and not the other, right? Sometimes in families, like one kid's like, yeah, just whatever.
It's like that. Honestly, it's like that with my brother, where to me, it's conflict with my whole family. I'm be transparent. I don't talk to any of them. And that's a choice because I don't feel like pretending the past never happened. And then now with me just wanting to have the conversation, I'm in a place of wanting to have the convo. Everybody else may not be. They moved on or they just are not equipped to. But then it's like now, I watch This Is Us, right? And Randall had this conversation recently with like his brother and how he made him feel, right? And that's kind of the convo I kind of want to have with like my dad. And it's like, even like, I love my mom, and there are times it's like, I want to talk to her, but I just don't want to pretend everything is fine. And there's so much past stuff where they don't want to talk about. So it puts me in this place of like flight where I don't want to do the, hey, how you doing? Oh, it's great to see you. We're all happy. And it's just like, we're not good. But the thing is, that's okay. Let's discuss it. Let's figure it out. But, I'm from a West Indian household, and therapy is something now the last couple of years people are now discussing. It's why you putting people in our business. What are you talking about that? Like, I give you something to cry about. And it's like everyone gets oblivious when you start talking feelings. Like, oh, whoa, what's wrong with you? Oh, you're doing too much. Oh, is that LA life? I'm like, emotions has nothing to do with the zip code or like where I live. This is how I feel and this is how I'm coming in. But I just don't know how to like accept it to a place of like, I'm not hurt. I understand I'm probably never going to have the conversation, but I don't want to pretend.
Yeah.
And that's where like I'm at a crossroad, because it's just like, you're going to be like, hey, how you doing? And it's going to be this light fake talk that I don't even want to do, or I don't even participate in it. And I don't like the fact that I don't participate in family because I have this like, I feel like for so many years we've put a Band-Aid on a real wound. And it's just like, no, let's take it off and let's have some real healing.
Let's actually talk about it.
That they don't want to do. And
see, I don't be wanting to talk about it. Like, I mean, I don't know, only because like my mom, who I have like a
shout
real
out Vicky.
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Like my mom, we have like such a real rocky relationship, right? Because like my mom, she did not raise me. I was raised by my grandmother. Like I got, took from my mom when I was 6 years old by the state of Ohio. And so like she forgets. Like she forgets, like in her mind, she forgets that like she was, addicted to drugs, that she abandoned us, that she was never there, that she missed all these birthdays.
Do you think she forgets, or she tries to black it out and clean slate?
I don't fucking know.
Well, you have to think about this. You forget, right? Where you put your grandma, you put her in the back, you put her death in the back. Your mom may have done the same thing, because that might be where you saw it.
Give her grace. Give her grace. Wait, listen. Sit down. Listen, because you about to say, hell no, wait. She may be on to something. Wait.
So
give your mama grace. Give Vicky grace.
She's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But she hurt you. She hurt you, right?
It's not the fact that she hurts me. It's the fact that she wants to pretend like none of...
That's where I am. I'm with that.
She wants to pretend like
nothing happened.
Yeah.
None of it happened, and that she's totally responsible for everything that I have, and I should give her 50%.
Oh, she took it. She took it one step further. I actually do something to hurt you, but like I also,
you know what? It's just you came out of her womb, and every accomplishment.
And you know what both of y'all are saying is this idea. I think that we also looking like back to this idea of like the ideal family versus the real family.
Yeah.
society gives us this perception that
Perception versus reality.
Right? Perception versus reality. They
Yeah.
give us this perception that just because you're related to someone that you have to be connected to them. And I think that to an extent,
that's a good one.
We got to take that down, right? I didn't ask to be born into the family I was born into. Well, some religions believe different things. Some religions do believe that you choose, but others don't. But I didn't ask to be born to this reality. I got y'all. I woke up here with y'all. So why now do I have to be connected to you for the rest of your life or my life?
When I say that, I'm a bitch.
Well, they might call me a bitch too. I don't know. We haven't posted the video yet.
That's how that's how I feel about like one of my sisters. Just because we're sisters, it's like I just feel like sometimes family members have the hugest sense of entitlement, and that's like the biggest disease to me. And they just feel so entitled to things that I'd be like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like, you know what I mean? Like they're like, and it's just like because they're your family. Like me, you feel like a sense of responsibility for them. You feel a sense of like their entitlement has some validation to it.
We were talking about that no thing with you.
So like it's like it's like like I remember one of my family was like they shouldn't have to work. I'm like I fucking go to work every single day. Like I literally had a family member live with me, and I was waking up, taking my daughter to school to go to work, and they fucking sitting out by my pool doing yoga and yin. I'm like, I don't even fucking got time to do yoga and yin. I'm fucking running around with a chicken with her head cut off all day, and I come home, and it's just like, it was just like the sense of entitlement that like I'm supposed to like do it. And I had to like explain to them like, where the fuck you think this money come from? Like there is no tree in my backyard. I don't have a money printing machine. Like I'm not magically married to this rich billionaire who's just like
there's no inheritance.
Right,
I work for
every
this.
minute.
I'm not frolicking around. You know what I mean?
Frolic is a funny word. I'm sorry.
No, I'm actually busting my ass every single day. And because since I don't really complain, I'm not a complainer. And I do understand like you have to take like the good with the bad. So I take my licks. And I've always been able to take my licks and take my losses. And I've never been like a big complainer. But since I haven't been a big complainer and I've been able to take my licks, you think like I'm just not.
But then, because it makes me think this. Well, then who's taking care of you?
That's to me, that's like when I think of Ming and without her even saying it, I just have like.
But she always take care of me. She be like, Ming, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, let's do it. She be like, no, if you can't do it, just say no.
You know what I think about
like,
because it's like to me, you start to have grace and you start to have respect for people. And at times, I know if I ask Ming for anything, she's never going to say no to me. But with that comes respect. And I know at times, it's not that she doesn't have boundaries. It's she has a lot of love to give. And at times, people may take advantage of that. So I remember for myself, reel it back. And the person who continuously gives people flowers, which is to me is her all the time, I'm like, okay, Ming gives flowers, and I'm not trying to be the friend that outdoes everything. I want other people to do whatever I said, but I want to make sure she has a moment. She knows she's appreciated, she's loved, because she don't ask for nothing. She won't say nothing. No, I'm cool thing. But, and she, like she says, she doesn't like, even when her grandmother passed, I'm like, she don't really talk about feelings. So I'm not
going there.
So I'm like, even with it, but everybody's not like that.
I'm
where
flighty,
like,
so I'm like,
I want to keep it fun.
I try to figure it out with every friend, but I figured it out with her where I feel like I've mastered it. Where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna send flowers, and I'm gonna let some time go by. I know she's thinking of her. Let me give her something or something that's in thought, not just because she can buy expensive shit herself.
You're the most thoughtful person I've ever met in my whole fucking life. Like, I was in the hospital for 93 days, and I knew every week I was getting a fucking package. And every week,
I was like, all the things she
like my blanket, she put like my dad passed, my brother passed, my sister passed, my grandma passed. She like had all their names on this blanket. I was like, I just know Karen is finna, like, I knew for a fact when they'd be like, Lacey, I'm like, I got a
Like,
package
me.
and I'd be
It's
on the
just
phone
filled
with
with
her
love.
and she'd be like, what you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm playing Connect 4 on my phone. She was like, on your phone? I'm like, yeah, I'm playing it on my phone. 3 days later, Miss Lacey, you got a packet. It's a Connect 4 game. I'm like, this girl she just is the sweetest little friend ever.
But I figured that out for her because the only reason it's like, which makes me think of that because I just kind of see it without saying it, where people know the love that she likes to pour and give, which is kind of like myself, which I feel like we have so much in common, where people at times may take advantage. And it's not just her creating boundaries or anything, because it gets a little hard when it's family, when it's certain things, and it's not your place to say. That's where it gets complicated, because I do have that problem with friends, with certain family, where they're like, "Oh, you don't have real responsibilities." I'm like, "What does that mean?" Okay, I'm sorry. Like, my brother used to make this comment to me, and it would bother me. And it's like we never even really had that convo where it's like, you don't have no responsibilities. I'm like, Mike, I'm sorry that you have 3 kids. And then this is where I get like, I don't mean to, but I go into a negative space because the energy they're giving me, I don't know how to stop.
Yeah, because also it's built into you. You've done it your whole life. Like they put that button there. And so it's hard to change your response.
I want to be able to not even just give back that energy where people can switch it, because that means they're in control of a situation. They're in control of my emotions, and that's not good. Where I'm like, I'd rather just not talk to him because I don't want to give back meanness or just negative energy, because then you take it and then it's like, he'll be like, oh, you have no real responsibility. I'm like, Mike, I'm sorry that I don't have 3 baby mothers like you do. I'm glad you finally got married and you figured it out. But I was like, there's no option for me to run around with 3 different baby daddies. I said, you have that luxury, I don't. And I'm like, why are you being like, it's malicious and it's mean and it's not fair, and to like just like to narrow down his life in that way when these were people he were actually with, engaged and married. And I'm like, Karen, why are you saying it like this? But
because you're hurt.
But I don't want to come from that place, and family just gets very fucking tricky.
So my question to you as an expertise is, and for our listeners to know, like, when should people be introduced to therapy? Because I personally
feel like straight out the womb, as soon as they
literally
pat the
everyone
baby's
should get
butt.
one.
I never even had a therapist until I was going through a breakup.
No,
and
I
went
feel
to
like
that was my first time like talking to a therapist and couples therapy. So I want to know, like, when should therapy be introduced? How often should people
Like go and see one or something?
see one, or like when should you see one, or like, because I
baby's
feel
getting
like
straight
we
out the
go when
womb.
it's too late.
Yeah, well,
we go when
and
it's
all this
like
discourse.
We go
Yeah.
when, like, have you guys seen Olympia's Fallen?
I think I did see that.
Or London is falling. Like, we go, it's literally the fucking like
when the world is ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
feel
it's like, fix it.
Yeah.
Fix it. The house is burning. Put it
Yeah.
back together.
Yes.
Mental health is becoming more and more medicalized, right? So you're seeing it in more offices and hospitals.
Conversations.
And so, in more conversations. And so I agree that I think it should be like having a family practice doctor, right? You have a doctor from the time you're born. You go see him. You get your shots. You get your checkups and all that stuff. So I do believe that from the time you're really little, you should learn this stuff. Because here's the thing. If you're not an expert in mental health, how do you know how to teach your kid how to mourn? How does everyone just know how to do that? Yeah. And so I think that it would be really important. So I in an ideal world, yes, I wish that you come out the womb and it's like, here's your therapist. Any problems you have over the course of your life, please go see this individual. And if they retire, then there's someone else that will come step in. That's like ideal. But like for the real world, right? The world that we actually live in, you should go if you start to notice any major changes in your life. Like if you're noticing that, like, because with all this COVID stuff, if you're noticing that you're sad more than you're used to being, if you notice that you're angry more than you're used to being, if you notice like you're staying inside, obviously everyone's been inside a little bit more than they're accustomed to, but if you're like finding yourself being afraid, leaving the house. So any changes, you're eating more to the point where you're gaining weight, or you're eating less to the point where you're gaining weight without trying to, then that's like, okay, well, something's going on with me. Maybe I should reach out. right? And so there's a number of different ways you can reach out. There are like apps that do therapy now. Like your doctor's office can refer you to therapy. There's therapyforblackgirls.com. There's Psychology Today. I love Therapy for Black Girls because it's hard to find a black therapist. And for some of us, we do want someone that just kind of gets a little bit of that without us kind of having to like be cultural czars. Like I've had a lot of really wonderful white therapists because I've had a million therapists over the course of my life because therapists do go to therapy. The therapist I've been working with now, I've probably been with her for like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Maybe
My therapist is Dr. May. She's a black woman out in Atlanta, and she I'm talking about she'll break you down to your core and build you right back on up. Like, I was like, she was really, really good. But can you tell our listeners where we can find you?
That's it. You can find me at AllisonHicks.com. That's spelled real wacky. ALLYCINHICKS.com. Allison Hicks on Instagram. I'm there.
So, okay. I recently I have a new primary care doctor, right? And they were asking me all these questions that I was not prepared for. Like about my dad's history, my mom's history. And this is not conversations they have with you, right? I do know my dad was in, I don't even know what you call it, but like a clinic because he had like a mental breakdown. And they told us, like, my mom was like, oh, he left until we were like older. And it was just like, she said it, she yelled it to him in an argument is the only reason I know. So my doctor was like, okay, do you have a therapist and a psychiatrist? And I was like, I watch Frasier, Talk to You. And then I have like a spiritualist. So I'm like, what do you mean a psychiatrist? Like, no, it's two different ones.
One write drugs and one don't.
There's levels to this shit.
So I was just like, but then I was
my therapist was like, I was so depressed. She was like, I'm going to have to refer you out because you need going through postpartum.
Yeah.
I was so far down this rabbit hole of postpartum depression that she said, she told me like a month later, she said, Ming, I'm so proud of you because I honestly if you didn't have any turnaround within the next 30 days, she showed me on her list that she was like, I was going to have to refer you out because I was getting kind of nervous for you that you needed somebody who can write you some prescriptions for antidepressants.
So this is what like my doctor was just like, so take my phone number. I was like, why? Because after we had the conversation, I just was being very honest. And he's writing more and more. And I'm like, what are you writing? And he was like, so how are you feeling? Do you have someone here? I was like, okay. He was like, well, I have a psychiatrist. I said, no, I have a therapist and a spiritualist. He said, okay, I have a psychiatrist.
They write the drugs.
Yeah. And I was just, it was just a lot because it was at a point I'm just like, and it takes me back to what we were originally saying, like, and it made me mad all over again with like my parents and everything else. Because we could have had and did this 15 years ago and I could have been fine. Where now I'm going through the process and I just feel like mentally I'm like underdeveloped with my emotions and everything else because you're just now dealing with it and you're just now catching up with like how do you deal with taking the bits and pieces to figure out like how to fix your life, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. One, I would say have grace for yourself.
Yeah.
There's nowhere we're supposed to be. And when you start to hear yourself saying things like, I should be here, I should be there, then like realize that you're kind of, you might be looking at this playbook, this idea that there's this rule book of where people at a certain age or at a certain point in their life or at a certain income level where they should be, right? It just doesn't exist. You are where you are. And I've been, over the course of the pandemic in particular, I've been helping people and talking to people a lot about grace.
Yeah.
Because we're so hard on ourselves because everyone has all these ideas of what they want to come out of COVID with and what they don't want to have and all this stuff. So that's the first thing I would say to you is like, be patient with yourself, love yourself, and accept, going back to the idea of radical acceptance, accept the fact that this is where you are right now. And because you're here right now, it's a beautiful space. It might not feel good. It might feel absolutely horrible, but it's all right.
Yeah.
And you'll if you don't want to take medication, you can find, you can still have a psychiatrist and not take medication. You can talk to them about it. You can have your therapist, you can have your coach, you can have your spiritualist. You can do all of that, but don't make it doesn't mean anything about you.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think sometimes people are like, well, what does it mean something's really, really wrong with me? Like, you think I'm going to kill myself? What do you think? And that's not always the case. Sometimes medication, some people prefer medication with talk therapy.
Yeah.
And so don't judge yourself. It's okay. Hit me up.
I'm getting your number.
She gonna hit you with them texts too. Like I do. I be like,
Look what he sent me. Look what he just texted me. What does this mean? Why is he sending me this?
I sent you some screenshots. I be like, what the fuck does this mean? She be like, well, hello first, Karen. How are you doing? Let's cut the chit chat.
But you know what? That's what I really loved about my black woman therapist, Dr. May, is that she let me get straight to the meat and potatoes on day one.
No, that's
I
Allison.
don't want to fucking talk about. I want to get to the issue. Why I am here. I want to talk about that today.
Let's get to 8. And not like
we can work back about my childhood, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about why I'm here.
Yeah. I believe it comes out. It comes out.
Let's talk about it today. I need some type of advice today.
She's gonna give you she gave me a form and was like, I'm like, listen, I'm broken. We passed this. I know it's like watching the words and how we express, but I just knew what it was. I was like, I'm being truth. I'm past this paper.
I need some advice.
I'm not having any of those papers.
I was like, I'll be screenshotting comments. I'd be like, what the fuck is he talking about? What is this? Like, I'm sad today. What is there to really get to it? And that's why I absolutely love and I recommend it's fine to have other races, but just for me, just being a black woman, I feel really comfortable talking to you. And it's just even with my psychiatrist too, I told him, I was like, refer me to somebody who's going to understand me. I know how blunt I am, the convo, straight to it. If I send a text message, I don't want you to be offended. If I say it in a certain way, I don't want to seem abrasive. My Jerseyan comes out, where it's just even with her, and it's my spiritualist get it. I'd be like, oh God, the fuck. And Jonathan Ming got me into him. He just be, y'all understand. So it's my trifecta.
It's your village. It's your village. And I think that that's to me a big takeaway is you got to have your village. You got to figure out where you get fed when it comes to family, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to anyone. Blood might be thicker than water, but which one do you drink? You got to have people in your life that feed you, that nourish you, whether they be your
blood
therapist.
May be thicker than water, but which one do you drink?
Right?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm giving them for Christmas. You do gift cards? That's what you, right. All family members. What you give me for Christmas?
We have to tell
therapy, gift card.
Therapy.
You do gift cards?
Sure.
Okay. Before we get out of here, could you give us 3 tips for our listeners about mental health and wellness and
to help them, especially during
COVID.
This COVID. I know it's just it's kind of quick, but 3 things that they can do and add to their everyday life because, I guess financial issues or timing or things they may not be able to go out.
Because my one friend is a divorce lawyer. She says she's never...
Oh, people are getting divorced. It's very real right now. It's... The other side of COVID is about to be real different. So one, I would say sit in silence a little bit more often. And I don't mean you have to be at the top of a mountain for 5 hours. I mean, when you wake up, don't turn your phone on. Don't look at the news. Take a few minutes just to be with yourself, to listen to yourself, to make plans, be present. Silence can be scary, but learn to sit in a little bit of silence. 2, I would say get a little bit active because when you release endorphins, it does actually elevate your mood. So even if that's a walk down the street, if that's a walk around the park, get more active because physical health is mental health. Mental health is physical health. They impact one another. So keep that in mind. And then the 3rd is don't be ashamed or worried about getting help. If you need it, reach out, find it.
How can we find you?
AllisonHicks.com, spelled weird, AllisonHicks.com, Allison Hicks on Instagram, Allison Hicks on Twitter. I'm boring on Twitter, but I be there.
No, she be on Twitter. I'd be when people ask me stuff, I'd be ask Allison.
I'd be there.
Because I'm going to just regurgitate what she just told me. You might as well just go see. Yeah, I'm just go see the plug. Just go see the.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. I feel better.
Me too. And I need your phone number.
You got it.
I'm about to put us in this group text.
Okay,
too.
please.
I'm ready for all the screenshots. I'm sure
it gets a little wild. But I guess this is the end of Girl, I Guess.
Yeah, Girl, I Guess. I feel better, though. I feel better.